Okay, this is my third attempt at this video. Last time around, we talked about a square within a square. And in many ways, working with quadratics is easier than this, but this is a good way to get into how it's a real-world thing. The big square is a tent. The little square is the area I can use inside the tent, which is at least 2 feet from the rainy edge of the tent. So these are 2-foot buffer strips. Like this strip here represents 2 feet, but they go on all sides, so they're on all the sides. Clean this up here. Cleaner, I guess. Like I said, third time around, guys. This is x squared plus 8x plus 16. And where does the 16 come from? Well, this is a square in the corner. It's 2 by 2. One edge is 2, the other edge is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. This is a 2 by 2 4. This is a 2 by 2 4. This is 4. Okay, that's 16 if you add that all up. What about the 8x? Where does that come from? Well, this longish rectangle is x, actually. That's the unknown area in the middle of the... I want to know how big this tent is. How much space am I going to get to use? I haven't built the tent, but I'm gonna. How big should it be? I don't know. Variable x by x. I know it's a square, so I get to use x twice. I want it to be a square. I chose that. But this rectangle up here is x, and then its edge is 2, so it is 2 times x. That's 2x for its area. So I'm actually going to switch colors here, because in green I'm going to be writing area, so I got to go right back to 4s again. Blues are distances on edges. Greens are areas. And quadratics are all about the area. Strangely enough, you can also use edges to make areas, right? The 2 times 2, we use 2 edges. And maybe that's the clearest in the center. One edge is x, the other edge is x, so we can use those edges. X times x, get x squared. So it's important to realize whether you're talking about an edge or an area, and they're related. So anyway, that long rectangle is 2x. This one is also 2 at the top and x long, so that's 2x. That's 2x. That's 2x. 2 plus 2 plus 2, 8x. Now, from the last video, I said I had 64 square feet in my yard. So if you add up all those areas, it needs to equal 64. But I realized that's not big enough. I need to go to a friend's house. They have 196 square feet in their yard. That might be big enough. But how big is the party zone in the middle? How big is that party zone at my friend's house? If their yard is 196 square feet and they have a square yard, we can put this, I'm going to build a square tent. And if I build that square tent and put it in their yard, how big is the party zone? Let's figure it out. Let's try to solve for x. Now we're going to need new tools. We're going to subtract 196 here. I'm going to switch to blue. Minus 196, minus 196. That line's just under. Okay, there we go. That equals x squared plus 8x minus 180 equals 0. Okay, we got something equal to 0. That's good, because we want to use the zero product property. Problem is, we don't have a product. This is a sum. X squared plus 8x plus negative 180 equals 0. So it sums to 0. We want to multiply to 0. But could we somehow come up with two things that when we multiply them would be the same as x squared plus 8x minus 180? In other words, we need to figure out what goes here and here and here and here, so that when we do the rainbows, these are not the right numbers, but let's say they're really. When we do these rainbows, x times x, x squared, x times 3, 3x, 2 times x, 2x, 2 times 3, 6. Combine like terms in the middle. That'd be x squared plus 5x plus 6. Well, that's not what we want. We wanted like 8x and like negative 180. So these are not right. But there's got to be something, right? That when we do those rainbows, in fact, when we do the first rainbow, the first multiplication step, remember, this is all based on the idea that if you had two things, like x and 2 and x and 3, you could actually figure out the areas by multiplying. So x times x, x squared, 3 times x, 3x, 2 times x, 2x, 2 times 3, 6. That's the one we just did. Combine like terms in the middle. So we're trying to figure out what this could be. But we know we have to make an x squared. That means that's got to be an x, that's got to be an x. Ta-da! We already got the first bit done. Back it up here. To back it up to this point. Yeah. So this is an x, and this is an x. The next interesting thing is what happens if we take the last numbers and multiply them. It equals 180, negative 180. Well, how many ways is there to do that? There's a negative 180 times 1, and there's negative 1, and there's negative 90 times 2, and there's negative 60 times 3, and there's nothing times 4, nothing times 5, negative 30 times 6, and You can keep dividing. 7 doesn't divide. 8, don't think divides. 9, yeah. Negative 20 times 9. And negative 18 times 10. There might be one more, but I think that you do want to usually make the full list, but 180 is so big. We're just going to make that much of the list because the next piece of information is when you do the other rainbows, that times that, and that times that. No. I screwed that up. When you do this times this, and this, and this times that, yeah, the x's, and you get the combined like termsers, we know they combine to be 8x. They combine together to be 8x, right? So which of these that we've written down adds up to 8? Well, not that. That adds up to negative 179, negative 88. These are all wrong. Not adds up to 8. The close one we got is actually this. This adds up to negative 8. So what if we switched it around? What about positive 18 and negative 10? Aha! That adds up to 8. And it multiplies to 180. Ta-da! We found our things. Negative 10 and 18. Now, that might be the first time you've ever seen anyone factor anything. So we better check it. That times that. That times that. X squared. That times that. 18x. That times that. Negative 10x. That times that. Negative 180. That's a good sign. Combine like terms in the middle. X squared plus 8x. But minus 180. That's it. That is it. So this and this are the same. They're equivalent expressions. Two different ways of writing the same thing. Cool. So in other words, this is a valid equation. On this line and the next line, they're equal. But now we can use the ZPP. So either this equals 0 or this equals 0, because when we multiply it, it equals 0. So one of them has to be 0. And in fact, they can both take turns being 0. So x equals 10 makes the first one 0, and x equals negative 18 makes the second one 0. There are two answers. In the context of the tent problem, only the positive one is easy to use. Technically, you could make this negative distance work. You have to like mark a spot on the floor and then measure backwards 18 feet, and then the 2 feet comes out of that, so it's like complicated. But the positive one makes more sense. You could measure off 10 feet of fabric. Remember, we're making this tent out of fabric, so I can measure off 10 feet the other way, add on the extra 2-foot strips. Ta-da, there's my tent. It fits in the yard. And if we're using x is 10, we can then figure out the area in the middle because it's x squared, so 10 times 10. But both of these answers work. Let's explore that. And then this video will be over. So it's x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 196. And supposedly, that was the original question. How can I add up all this area under the tent and it fit in my friend's yard? And we solved it for x equals 10 or x equals negative 18. We solved it by factoring it apart into two thingies. And we'll go over... Well, you're going to have to review factoring online or something. But you're trying to multiply to this number and add up to this number. And I just make a list of all the ways to multiply to this number and figure out which of them add up to this number. And if you're trying to make a list of how to multiply to a number, you just type it in. Negative 180 divided by 1. Well, that one works. Divided by 2. See if it's a whole number. Divided by 3. See if it's a whole number. Divided by 4. See if it's a whole number. And come up with these pairs, factor pairs that multiply. Okay. So supposedly 10 works in here. And that adds up to 196. What about the negative 18? Now, this is very important to put the negative 18 in parentheses because the squaring will happen first. So if you just write negative 18 squared, that means negative 18 squared. But that's not what we want. We want negative 18 squared, not negative 18 squared. It's my father-in-law in the background talking on the phone. I have to get a sound studio up in here. Equals 196. All right. This is 324. This is negative 144, I think. Yep. And does this add up to 196? Yes, it does. So there are two answers, and we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so that's intro to factoring.